Big Ed, how about we bring out your fiancé?
Let's do it. I just forgave her for everything. I realized what an asshole I was, how I treated her, and I just didn't know how to be a boyfriend. No one can tell you who to love. No one knows what's in your... How do you know what's in my heart?
You don't love anybody except yourself. And you're not in love with her. You're using her.
We could have already been married, and we're not doing
Liz, you gotta wake up.
I think Ed f***ed up, and he was blasted all over the internet for it. He came back crying, and he gave her the biggest gift he could think of, and that is an engagement. And that's how he got her back.
Yep.
It's basically a bride.
What? It's crazy.
Well, welcome back to another episode of The Young and the Desperate. Well, unfortunately, we're not. Ed and Liz are not only back together, but they're also engaged. Yet despite clear evidence why Liz shouldn't marry Ed, Liz seems content with completely forgetting the past and just willing to go along with Ed's false promises of a happy future together.
This time, I have faith that him and I will make it. My heart's always been with him. I have faith that he's changed the way that he says things, the way that he wants to include me in things. It feels like everything it should have been in the first place.
I mean, honestly, at this point, I don't even know who's more delusional when it comes to this dumpster fire of a relationship. This relationship makes no sense. I mean, we all know that Liz could do much better with someone closer to her age. And I keep wondering, if this is a version of Ed and Liz, it's from like the upside down mirror dimension seen on the hit Netflix series Stranger Things. Now this is a dimension where everything is backwards from our world. I mean, if that were the case, I'd better understand why Liz would be into Ed. However, since we're dealing with reality, nothing she says provides any clarity as to why she's engaged to Ed. Considering Ed's been the one to break up with her like 8 times, you have to kind of wonder if she's like hypnotized or brainwashed in some other way, or if she too just loves the attention she's getting as a result of being on a reality television show. I mean, this relationship's been nothing but a train wreck since it began. I mean, Ed's had a history of toxic and immature behaviors, while Liz has a history of making poor relationship choices, basically to men who've used and verbally abused her. And while I'm not rooting for them to break up or divorce, I just don't see how a couple this dysfunctional is going to make it work. Now, while Ed's in therapy, and you all did know Ed's in therapy, right?
I have things I'm working on in therapy, which is awesome. This is the first time in my life that I've ever been in therapy. This is what my therapist is telling me is...
Stop, explain, and tell us stories what your therapist is telling you. You sound like a piece of shit that would make me blush.
I mean, now he claims to be a different person, able to see the errors of his way with Liz. Yet, while he may be making progress in identifying the source of his toxic behaviors, he's still a long way from actually changing them. I mean, think about an alcoholic who finally comes to terms with the pain they've caused to their family when they were drunk. While that's certainly a significant breakthrough, it doesn't mean their craving for alcohol automatically goes away. They're still going to face the temptation to drink, especially when life starts getting hard again. And over time, they will either overcome it or fall victim to it again. Therefore, while Ed's making progress identifying the source of his problematic behaviors, it's really his violent impulse reactions which continue to get him in trouble. I mean, Ed throws temper tantrums when he doesn't get his way. As we've learned from an leaked phone call Liz shared with the world, tend to lead to a lot of psychological abuse.
I don't give a fuck, Liz. You're fucked up.
How am I fucked up? Are you going to listen to me, or are you going to take over this whole...
Fuck you, dude. You're fucked up.
Stop speaking to me like this, Ed. Stop.
For you to even offer to give a coworker a ride home to El Cajon, What the fuck is wrong with you?
Which perfectly leads into our next section. I mean, you should never depend on your feelings because your feelings can be deceiving. And don't get me wrong, feelings are important when it comes to relationships and knowing when you're in love with someone. But a sign of immaturity is someone who allows their feelings to dictate their decisions. And sadly, Ed, who's in his mid-50s, still handles adult issues with the mindset of a toddler. I mean, toddlers believe that the world kind of revolves around them, and Ed's shown he has unrealistic expectations of people.
Things started to get really bad when I was starting to take a stand for the things that I wanted and my wants and my needs, because throughout the whole beginning of the process, it was always accommodating to him. And like every morning I would wake up and it's just a bunch of naked girls above my head because of all of his photography work. I'm going to put it this way. His photography work is amazing, but I don't want to wake up to it every day. There's nothing of me in this house. And when I told him I needed to give it some personal touch to make me feel like I'm coming home, he went and picked out pictures and put them up, which is cute. But for me to try to sit there, he would tell me I'm just ungrateful. Like, I'm not ungrateful. You didn't listen to me.
I mean, Ed believes people should cater to his wants and needs. I mean, Ed has no concept of what compromise even means. I mean, if you do anything differently from what he's accustomed to, then it's just wrong. If you don't go along with what Ed wants to do, then he's going to lose his mind. And you're likely to get a phone call from him about how stupid, dumb, and messed up in the head you are. I mean, toddlers are also impulsive. I mean, Ed went to Mexico, and like every other woman he dated, he quickly developed feelings for Kaori. Then once he came home alone and striking out with Kaori, he quickly developed feelings for Liz again and went out and bought a ring for her. Ed doesn't know what true love is. Ed wasn't able to make a love connection with Kaori because she wanted to give the relationship time to develop. I mean, this is something mentally healthy people normally do. Ed's not known for his patience and selfishly not willing to meet people where they're at. People like Ed, who are emotionally immature, want to rush into relationships for their own selfish purposes. I mean, perhaps they just don't want to be alone. They may want someone to take care of them, or they're in a rush to get married before their partner finds out about their toxic behaviors and perhaps massive debts. Regardless of the reason, there's always a personal agenda. Fortunately, Kaori had had enough of Ed and ended any chance of a relationship off camera. People like Ed, who think they're in love, really don't understand the concept of what it means to put others' needs ahead of their own. Ed wants to be loved, but he's absolutely clueless on how to love someone else. And just like a toddler, Ed wants the security of having someone around who will meet all his needs, not demand anything from him, make him a consistent priority, and won't leave after he throws a temper tantrum, which entails verbally abusing his wife. So who knows if this relationship's even real or if it's just for show. Regardless, there are many takeaways Ed's provided us with, which reminds his male viewing audience of what not to do while dating, and his female viewing audience at least what type of man they should avoid.